Well, there he is. The Pope's getting into the Pope-mobile. I think I asked you last night, Father, he wears yellow and white. Those are the papal colors, right?
Yeah, yellow is really the color of his crest, yellow and white, but he wears the white cassock and skull cap, the only bishop that does that. But the papal colors for decorations, and you'll see them in evidence at several spots along the way, are yellow and white. Although in Michigan, the choice was made to use more natural Michigan colors, to use purple for grapes, and to use blue for the Great Lakes and the sky, to use green, which is, as you see very obviously, the color of our rich earth. So those colors will be in evidence, especially at the Silver Dome Mass.
Now, he's got, I think, Archbishop Edmund Chaka in the Pope-mobile with him. I wonder if he has done that in all of the cities in which he has visited, that he has taken either the Archbishop or the Cardinal of that particular diocese with him.
Yeah, especially if there's a parade planned. I noticed from San Antonio, for instance, Archbishop Flores was in the Pope-mobile with him. So any place that he's parading, the local bishop, who is his host, always goes with him.
You know, if he wants to, he's an unpredictable kind of a guy, and obviously has his own version of what the papacy should be and what kind of a pope he should be. With all the security now, if he decides to stop somewhere along the parade route in Hamtramck and go out and meet some kids and hug some grandmothers and stuff, the security guys have just got to be climbing the wall. But he's that kind of a man, isn't he?
That's right. That's right.
Mike, are you still there?
Bill, I'm here. I'm giving the pontiff a wave, and he waves back. And he's on his way to a historic trip. Boy, he looks good this morning. He looks good. I suspect we were talking to some of the seminarians that the pontiff went to sleep at about midnight last night, so he got a good 6 hours sleep if he did get up at 6 o'clock, as we suspect he did. We also understand that Archbishop Chaka made sure there was a new mattress there for the pontiff, so hopefully he has slept well. He certainly looks good. And now you're not going to believe the motorcade. Just take a look with me here, Bill, and you'll see there in the shot on the screen buses and an incredible amount of police, including a motorcycle motorcade that you would not believe, that just stretched all the way down East Boulevard. And I see there on the screen you are watching the I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, yes, Wayne County sheriffs there. So the pontiff's trip official, the second phase. He's on his way to Hamtramck. The excitement continues, and of course, we're right on top of the story. Bill?
Okay. Can you see that, Jim?
Yep, that's, I can't see it physically, but I can see it on our monitors as you can. That's up at the head of Joseph Campo, way up. That's about 2 miles from where we are.
The Pope's Mercedes in Hamtramck, Motown. That's a Mercedes-Benz vehicle. It's specially equipped with bulletproof windows. Of course, there was that assassination attempt.
I understand there are 2 of these vehicles in the U.S. that have been leapfrogging.
Yeah. Yeah, the vehicle the Pope John it does travel in is known to millions of people, of course, as I indicated, as the Pope-mobile. There are actually 2 Pope-mobiles, both made by Mercedes-Benz and equipped with bulletproof wraparound windows. The seat inside the bubble of the car is capable of holding 3 people, and I think that's Archbishop Edmund Chaka, and is that the Papal Secretary of State?
Yes. No, excuse me. I think it's just his personal secretary, and on the back of the vehicle, or perhaps that's the vehicle behind, has security people that I'm seeing through the window.
Now, what is that narration we're hearing, Jimmy?
That's part of the religious service at the pavilion that has been going on for an hour and will go on right up to the minute the pontiff walks up on that platform and becomes part of it. We've had a number of selections that have been very enjoyable, albeit all in Polish, as of course most of this service will be in Polish, some of it in English. But again, I'll say the Pope is home as far as these folks are concerned, and if he wants to speak his language, that's fine with them.
Well, of course, the sermon and I guess the service today is not Father going to be in Polish. We have an interpreter or a translator.
I have a hunch he'll bounce back and forth between the 2 languages. Of course, that's fairly easy for John Paul.
Each petition in our litany touches the heart.
There you go.
We are stirred to emotions of pride,
some of the some indication of the size of the crowd.
Science, religion, education, music, and the arts. The next song in our program...
Jim, have you been supplied the itinerary? I mean, can the Pope stop if he wishes and mingle with the crowd, or will he get to his destination, deliver his speech, and then as he prepares to leave, maybe mingle a little bit?
He can do that, and as I said, they have their fingers crossed and are hoping that he will stop by Pope Park, where that statue of John Paul II is. But I imagine he's going to be reminded that they're running a little behind and that there's a lot of people up here at the end of the route already into a service waiting for him. So I have a hunch that if he stops, it'll be at best one time.
It's anticipated that, Bill, when he gets to the place in Hamtramck where he's going to be talking, that they've rehearsed that he'll probably shake hands up to this point and before he goes up to the altar.
I would say, Bill, probably the folks with the best chance to get a handshake are those who live on Hewitt Street. The motorcade will turn into Hewitt off Joseph Campo behind the pavilion, and the folks who live in those houses along there may be in luck, I would think.
We're getting that particular television shot there from a Channel 7 flatbed truck that's motoring just in front of the Pope-mobile.
Ah, respite from the 200 voices.
Jim, is that being piped all along the parade route, that music? I mean, what is its source? From where does it emanate?
I'm not sure how far up. We're about 1,200 feet from the pavilion, and we have no trouble hearing it.
That's where it's coming from.
I have a couple of folks in the crowd here who assure me they speak good Polish, so if we get in trouble, I will go to them, Bill.
There's Bishop pointing things out along the way. Some great bakeries along Joseph Campo, as you know.
Well, Hamtramck's a city of about, what, 22, 23,000 people, and still 70, 75% Polish.
Polish, perhaps even a little more. Tremendously proud of their city, and
yeah, a few facts about the city of Hamtramck. Its population has fallen in recent years, now down to, well, what, 21,000 people, 85% Catholic, and 65% are Polish.
it's a working class town, and this is a working class pope. He was a laborer and worked in a chemical factory, so these are his people in more ways than one.
Well, he was a stone cutter in his native Poland. That's the way he, I guess, helped pay his way through school and worked during the Nazi occupation of Poland.
That's right.
Early days of World War II.
And many Poles coming from to this country from Poland for various reasons to come here just for political freedom, got the kind of jobs. That's where Detroit's working class Poles come from. In the Pope's case, of course, he's also a world-class intellectual, so he's quite a well-rounded person, and I think the common touch comes from the fact that he comes from common folk.
You know, Father, when he was first elected, and let's face it, there's some politics that go on in the College of Cardinals. There were two cardinals that were kind of the co-favorites to become the next pope, and they're both considered very worldly and very cultured. And some say they're a little bit condescending to some people. And, of course, I guess the cardinals believe, and Catholics are asked to believe, that it is really God's will at work when they vote a certain way. But there certainly must have been some cardinals in Rome who are accustomed to running things who probably said, we have a poll for a pope. Jim, we'll finish the story later.
And going by Holbrook and Joseph Campo, one pope, with the Archbishop beside him.
But what I'm suggesting is that he made his mark on the papacy very, very early. Then, of course, there was the assassination attempt, and I would suspect that maybe all of the cardinals now hold this man in special awe in terms of what's happened to him and what he's done.
Yeah. Bishop Shaner, one of the auxiliary bishops of Detroit, recalled for me one time that when the Michigan bishops went with Archbishop Shaka to make their visit to the Vatican a couple of years ago, they had lunch with the Pope in his dining room. And he said it was shortly after his recuperation from that assassination attempt. And he said it really comes through very strongly that he feels himself a man of destiny, that it wasn't an error, that his life was threatened. It wasn't an error, that God spared him, and that he has work to do, and he'll just do it until God calls him home. So he communicates that sense of, I don't know.
Yeah, and I would think that the cardinals and the bishops of Rome, the power people in the church, must also feel that. And it happened, you know, it's amazing the way the forces of history kind of come together, because this last decade has really been the decade of the terrorist. And here we have this man from Poland who becomes Pope and goes out into the world as a man of peace, and he becomes the primary target of a terrorist. Yeah.
And we live in a world where symbols and symbolic people draw out the best and the worst in the human spirit.
Pope, obviously, he takes his time, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nobody rushes him.
Several people last night, just down the street here at St. Michael's in Southfield, said out of our party of 4, 3 of us got to shake his hand. I said, he really works the crowd.
Well, Robbie Timmons, he touched Robbie Timmons at the Blessed Sacrament last night, and I think she thinks she's been canonized. That's all she talked about all night. She said, Jimmy, you there?
Yeah. Remember all those empty spaces that were across the street from us?
Yeah.
Well, all the people are pouring down Joseph Campo now, and I have a hunch they're going to fill them up quickly. I think they changed their plans a little bit and decided that the people along here, they've had their eye on them long enough, and what the heck, let down the barriers, let them in, because there's plenty of room in that pavilion for everybody here, and they're just screaming. The yellow lines suddenly don't mean anything.
Are those the Knights of Columbus that we're seeing there?
Yeah, they do look like fourth degree.
Fourth degree Knights, yeah.
May also be some Knights of Peter Claver. There's some other Catholic fraternal societies I can't really identify from this shot. The songs that they're singing in the background, of course, the Pope would know all of those. It must be kind of special for him to hear that music over here.
The Polish religious songs, of course, when we grew up here, virtually it was all Latin, Pani Angelicus and Agnus Dei. Are the Polish Catholic Church songs more folksy than the Latin ones that we grew up with? Did they deal with Poland, with the country, with the culture?
Yes, that's true, Bill, very much. And they very many of them are addressed to the Mother of God and interceding for her to intercede with her son, to bless Poland, to keep it safe, and so forth. One of the songs that they're going to be singing this morning is addressed to the Mother of God and says, O Mother of God, we want God. We want God. The love of God urges us. Bless us and bring us to your son so that we can bring your son to the world. That kind of idea. But they're very, as you say, folksy. People who couldn't carry a tune in a bucket can sing these songs. They're kind of, monotone, and you can do them in a sort of harmony. I've heard them done that way, and it's really very moving. It's kind of like Eastern European soul music.
He's a very alert-looking man. He's always looking around. He spots somebody, and he'll walk over. Archbishop Shaka right behind him.
A priest at the cathedral last night said he never looks down to see where his feet are going. He said he just keeps moving straight ahead and doesn't seem to worry about stairs and steps.
Is it fair to say that this Polish Pope is the most well-known human being on the face of the earth and probably knows more people than anybody else on the face of the earth, I would think, right?
Well, he certainly met more people, and I think he's the kind of person who forms friendships and relationships, so that may be a safe bet. Maybe, I guess famous is a good word. There are others who are notorious, who, you know, maybe have the wrong reputation, but...
I guess there he's just meeting with people in the crowd, eh?
Yeah. They expected that he would do this. There's a barrier that surrounds that safe area, and along that barrier there are people in those seats, some dignitaries, some handicapped. I'm sure that if not right now, at the end of his remarks, as he leaves that pavilion, he'll greet the handicapped. In a few minutes, the ceremony that will take place is a brief one. Before he speaks, he's going to be given a very traditional Polish gift of bread and salt. And the bread represents bread, the staff of life. Without bread, man cannot live. And yet he does not live by bread alone, as the scriptures say. Then he's given salt, which is a gift from the earth. And it is salt. This is unrefined salt taken right out of the ground, maybe from one of Detroit's subterranean salt mines. But it brings to mind two things. Bread is just to live, but salt is to live with a little bit of savor, with a little bit of
Flavor of
taste,
life.
flavoring, yeah. And of course, again, a scriptural reference to you are the salt of the earth. So all of those things are embodied in that custom. It's still done at Polish weddings, and it's a sign of hospitality. So the citizens of Hamtramck, who represent all the Poles in the U.S., will greet him in that way in 2 moments.
Yeah, Mike Hopefield was saying last night that he kind of thought the Pope looked a little tired when he stepped off his jet. That was about 9 o'clock. Of course, he got a busy couple of days in San Francisco and ran into a few protesters out there. But they looked a little tired when he arrived in Detroit. But just as soon as he started mingling with the people, it was as though somebody had miraculously recharged his batteries. And I think you said at the time, you know, Bill, when you're a priest, you get that from people, that the people in your parish, your flock, become your family. Yeah. It's important to you emotionally, isn't it?
Sure is. Sure. When I've been really at, you know, physically at my limits and have had to go to the hospital, you know, driving over there, dreading it, I always come back recharged. And celebrating Mass on Sunday is the same thing. A number of priests have told me that same phenomenon happens.
But he likes to touch people. He's a very tactile guy, isn't he?
Yeah. That guy's going to say, the Pope personally stopped and he blessed this little rosary or image or whatever that is that he handed him.
Well, Charlie Vincent's got a sports column in the Free Press this morning. Tigers won last night, by the way, 7-6 when the Pope was in town. But Charlie Vincent's column in the Free Press is, bless you, boys, takes on a whole new meaning with the Pope in town. And I guess the Polish greeting is stolat, 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 which is, how does it go?
Okay, stolat means 100 years, and the other line is niech żyje nam. I'm probably killing that, but it's may he live, may he live. So I expect that that'll be sung to the Pope, if not part of the formal program, by people as he leaves today. It's a congratulatory thing. They sing it on saints' days, on birthdays, when you get a raise, when you did something great.
Well, is it the kind of thing that, for instance, Edmund Shaka might say to the Pope when they get together?
Sure.
I mean, that kind of friendliness, that kind of brotherhood.
Sure.
Kind of a Polish...
Yes, if he toasted him last night with a nightcap of any kind, I'm sure he probably said something like that, stolat. I mentioned to you last night, Bill, that Father Ted Bloschik, who's the pastor of Queen of Apostles Parish in Hamtramck and has been the site coordinator for the Hamtramck visit, took myself and another priest up on top of the pavilion the other day as they were putting the finishing touches on it. And from there you get a commanding view, and you can see St. Florian's Parish with scaffolding on it, doing some repairs in the towers. And curiously, his first assignment as a priest was to St. Florian's Parish in Krakow. So people of St. Florian's are thrilled about that. You get a great view of their church from his vantage point. Also, there's a senior citizens complex, and I'm sure the senior citizens are going to be standing at their windows with their coffee, waving to him. Then you see some other very typically American things. You see a bank, you see Elias Brothers, you see McDonald.
Well, I think we mentioned it last night in closing on the 11 o'clock program that the numbers on Shepherd 1, the TWA jetliner, are 4350. Those were also the winning numbers in the Michigan lottery yesterday. I don't know if that's coincidence or not.
Who made that observation, Bill?
I guess somebody who won. But that's the way people bet those things. You know? And there are a lot of bingo players around. I mean, there are a lot of, the Pope is now surrounded by a lot of bingo players.
But all those are B numbers, so you can't win. Well, you could win on a, what do you call that, straight shot or a straight line? He's taking a lot of time. They're probably going crazy if those who are watching their watches. That's great. He's greeting some sisters there, look like Felician sisters from one of the parishes in Hamtramck, no doubt.
Sparky's there? I guess Sparky Anderson's down to see the Pope. Maybe he remembers back to '84 when the theme was Bless You Boys, wasn't it, for the Tigers? Carl Levin, I guess, among those greeting and watching the Pope in Hamtramck. I haven't seen a weather report for this morning, but it wasn't raining when I came in the studio this morning. It doesn't look like it's raining down there, does it?
No, it's hard to tell. It's, for all it's being overcast, there's a kind of diffused light which makes it look bright out. It may look nicer on camera than it does in real life. I should mention another Monroe hero is the Deacon Wally Patak, who's actually from Wyandotte, Michigan, from Mount Carmel Parish, who will be reading the gospel at this little service in Hamtramck in Polish. He's been practicing. I'm sure he'll do a great job. He's deacon at one of the parishes in Monroe, where I'm from, and there have been feature articles about him in the local paper. I'm sure a lot of people in Monroe, especially from St. John's Parish, are going to watch Deacon Wally this morning and are cheering for him.
Deacons are technically, if not ordained ministers, they're kind of partially ordained ministers.
Oh, they're fully ordained.
Okay.
Yeah.
They cannot consecrate bread and wine. They cannot administer penance. Can they witness a marriage?
They can. In this case, this young man, Wally, is a presbyteral deacon, which means that he will go on to be ordained a priest. Later today, as we know, the Holy Father will be speaking to a number of so-called permanent deacons who are ordained deacons and stay and remain deacons. Most of them are married, some of them are single, but he'll be speaking to them and their families at Ford Auditorium. So a deacon is, you can be ordained one of three things: a deacon, a priest, or a bishop. But all of them are just as ordained as the others. It's just that they're
What's the
ordained for
difference
certain
between a
tasks.
deacon and an ordained priest? Is it just a little bit more education and then the final vows?
It's more what he, the person, is ordained to do. I'm sure there are permanent deacons every bit as qualified as many priests in terms of their education and their capabilities, but they're ordained instead of as a priest to celebrate Mass and to preach and to administer the sacraments. A permanent deacon is ordained to assist the work of the parish, and it's not a full-time commitment, but it's part-time, and he would preach and
One of the things that's come
counsel.
up with regularity in this American tour is women in the priesthood, and of course allowing men who are married to become priests. And I think one of the projections is that by the year 2000, 50% of the priests now in position in the American Catholic Church will have retired or died. You're not going to be among them.
No, they're still hard at work.
What goes on when you priests get together with your bishops and say, you know, there really would be no shortage of priests in America if we allowed priests to be married and have families. Do you think that's ever going to change?
Gosh, I honestly don't know, but I do know that priests are not afraid to talk that way to the bishops and to say, you know, why don't we think about that? Priests ultimately, I think depending on the priest and how he's handling his own ministry, if he's enlisting the help of a lot of lay people, as I and a lot of my friends do, we find it sort of invigorating. But there are days when you say, gosh, you know, will I be the pastor of this?
Well, it
whole
wasn't
county?
until, what, the Council of Trent or the Council of Nice, which was 1200 or something, that the rule went in the priest couldn't be married. I mean, prior to that, priests could be married.
Yeah, we had about 1,000. We've had 1,000 years in the Western Church of celibate clergy, and we had before that almost 1,000 years of either celibate or married having the option. So, sure, there's nothing doctrinal about it being celibate, celibacy being a requirement. Yes, it could change, and I think that what will make it change is not simply convincing the Holy Father. It's not just that you need to convince this individual. I think bishops worldwide have to come to that conclusion. And
well, yeah, but are the Catholic countries of Europe and Latin and Central and South America, are they encountering the same problem? Are they running short of priests as well?
the Western European countries are, for sure. The countries that seem to be experiencing the renaissance of vocations are the Eastern Bloc countries behind the Iron Curtain and in Central and South America, where I would suggest the church is under fire, where it's defending the rights of the oppressed, and there's something apparently very appealing about that.
Well, it's a little bit more heroic.
Well, sure.
It has a little bit more sex appeal, no pun intended.
Sure. I overheard a remark that Cardinal Deacon made. A priest from Detroit had gone to Poland, and he came back. There was a ceremony at the seminary for which Cardinal Deacon came some years ago. And the Polish priest said to the Archbishop, then Cardinal Deacon, if we should do whatever Poland does to get as many priests as it has. He said a little persecution might cause us to have more priests and sisters like Poland. And Cardinal Deacon just wisely nodded and said, yes, but if you stop to think about it, we have one of the worst kinds of persecution, affluence.
Of course, don't you think, Father, that you'd be a good husband, good father, and a good priest at the same time? And maybe a,
oh, sure.
Maybe a happier one?
Well, there's the question. Personally, I had to make that decision in the seminary about celibacy and came to the conclusion, yes, I'd be perfectly happy to be married. It always came down to I wanted to be a priest more, and I don't regret that decision. But I think there are priests who could function very perfectly well as married men, as do many married clergy of other denominations. Although some are quick to point out to me that is not an easy thing to do either, to balance ministry and family life. I think it's a matter of getting down to individual instances, and I expect, I guess in my lifetime, to see some movement in that regard. Some speculate that the way it may happen is that married men already married, will be ordained priests, like some of these deacons.
He's been in that crowd now for about 20 minutes. The Pope's really taking his time. He really likes to mingle with people.
Yes, he does.
I can't tell from this vantage point how far away he is from the special platform that's being built, but it looks like he's headed there now.
Yeah, he's circled. He'll go up on the, as you look toward it, he'll go up on the left-hand side, the side that has the Michigan and visiting bishops. And he'll go up to the top, and then as he comes down, he'll come down the opposite side where the band and the singers are. A lot of little individual untold stories, of course, behind everybody who's at this ceremony in Hamtramck this morning. One of the gentlemen who's directing the group that's singing right now, Walter Budweil, has been the director of the choir and the organist at Our Lady Queen of Apostles Church for 37 years, and I'm sure that this is the epitome of...
He's had a regular paycheck, hasn't he? This has got to be a high moment, and this has got to be the moment of his life.
Sure, you bet.
At sound system's very good down there, isn't it? Can you
Yes,
see
it is. Yes. That many voices, probably don't need much of a system.
What's the number in the choir, they say?
I think 200 voices.
Yeah, let's listen to that music.
Niech będzie pochwalony Jezus Chrystus.
Umiłowani Ojcze Święty, w imieniu ludu pochodzenia polskiego,
welcome to all you people of Polish heritage living in metropolitan Detroit.
waszą świątobliwość na tym spotkaniu
I am greeting
specjalnym
Your Holiness
organizowanym
at this special
dla
meeting
tutejszej Polonii.
organized for this Polonia
Jest
of Detroit.
rzeczą najbardziej właściwą,
This is
że
a wonderment
gromadzimy się w Hamtramck.
that we are here in Hamtramck.
Wprawdzie miasto to obecnie jest zamieszkałe nie tylko przez Polaków,
This city where not only Polish
lecz
people live,
także
but
przez
also
Ukraińców,
Ukrainian people,
Albańczyków,
Albanians,
Jugosławian,
Yugoslavians,
Afrykanów
Africans,
i przez inne etniczne grupy,
and other ethnical
to
groups.
jednak ciągle jest tu polska atmosfera i kultura.
Throughout it all, there is always Polish heritage and culture.
Że wielu Polaków nie żyje obecnie w Hamtramck,
We know that a lot of the
to
Polish
jednak
people
jest
are not
to
living in
ich
Hamtramck
miasto,
now, but this is still their
w
city.
którym tak wielu z ich przodków osiedliło się, przybywając do Nowego Świata.
The city where so many of their forefathers came when they came to the New World.
Wziąć Polska dla każdego mieszkającego w tych stronach,
Hamtramck meets Poland
bo
to
tu
all who live
słyszy
in this
się
part.
ciągle język polski na ulicach
Here you
czy w
always hear
sklepach.
the Polish language on the streets and in
Od
the stores.
1762
From
roku
1762,
Polacy emigrują z Polski do Detroit
the Polish people emigrated from Poland to Detroit and its
i
environs,
do całego stanu Michigan.
and the whole state of Michigan.
Obecnie Mamy ponad milion ludzi pochodzenia polskiego w naszym stanie.
We have over 1 million people living in the state of Michigan,
Archidiecezji Detroit.
and 6,000 of those live in the Archdiocese of
Spotykamy
Detroit.
się, wasza świątobliwość, w cieniu Kościoła Świętego Floriana,
We are meeting in the shadows of the Church of St. Florian,
najpiękniejszych kościołów
one of the most beautiful,
przez biedne
built by the poor immigrants,
rodziny polskie.
the Polish families.
Ci sami ludzie wybudowali wiele szkół,
These same people built many schools, many churches,
kolegiów,
many colleges,
seminariów,
many seminaries,
domów dla starszych
many older folks'
i
homes,
sierocińców
and many
naszej
orphanages
archidiecezji detroickiej
for the Detroit
i w całym
Archdiocese
stanie Michigan.
and for the whole state of Michigan.
On ponad 100 lat seminarium świętych Cyryla i Metodego w Orchard Lake
For over 100 years, St. Cyril and Methodius Seminary in Orchard Lake
wychować i wykształcić
helped to educate
3000 polsko-amerykańskich
3,000 Polish Americans,
dwujęzycznych kapłanów
bilingual
na
priests,
służbie w Detroit i wielu diecezjach
for their work in
w całych
Detroit
Stanach Zjednoczonych.
and dioceses all over the United States.
Nasi Polacy potrafili dokonać tego wszystkiego, ponieważ
Our Polish people
oni i ich przodkowie przynieśli do nowego świata
were able to
tę
do this
samą wiarę,
because they brought to this
która
country
kwitła
that great faith
i kwitnie w Polsce
that flowered
ponad
and still
1000
flowers
lat.
in Poland for over 1,000 years.
Jest dla mnie rzeczą niemożliwą,
It is for me a miracle
by znaleźć odpowiednie słowa, które by wyrażały to, co pragnę powiedzieć
that I can find the right words to tell you, Holy Father.
wielką dumę 600 tysięcy Amerykanów polskiego pochodzenia w naszej metropolii,
6,600
kiedy zostałeś
Polish American
wyniesiony
Catholics
do godności najwyższego pasterza w naszym kościele.
are
Nasz
here
naród
during your
polski
tenure as the Pope.
zawsze był bardzo lojalny
Our
Ojcu
Polish
Świętemu.
heritage is very
Ale
loyal
wybór
to the Holy
polskiego
Father.
papieża znaczył,
But when the Polish Pope
ciągle
was
znaczy,
selected,
że ta wierność przybrała dla niego bardzo
it
specjalne
means that our
znaczenie.
faith was really special and it has great meaning for us.
Zawsze, a szczególnie dzisiaj,
Always and particularly
wielu
today,
Polaków odwiedza swoich krewnych czy przyjaciół mieszkających w tych okolicach.
many people visit their Polish heritage, their relatives that
Wielu
live
z
in
nas
these lands.
udaje się w odwiedziny do Polski.
But it's not always easy to go visit them in Poland.
Amerykanie polskiego pochodzenia są świadomi tego, że należy pomagać ich braciom i siostrom w Polsce
We must help our relatives in Poland spiritually and materially.
w pełnej solidarności z ich nadziejami i aspiracjami.
With great faith.
Na koniec pragnę powiedzieć,
In conclusion,
ale znów brak mi do tego odpowiednich słów,
I wish to tell you, but I find a lack of words
myśli,
to tell you my true thoughts.
co oznacza wizyta
What-
waszej
it's-
świątobliwości.
It's very difficult for me to express what the meaning of your visit means to us here in Hamtramck.
Dzień dzisiaj jest najwspanialszym,
Today is the most special day,
najbardziej doniosłym dniem w jego historii.
the most special day in the history of the city.
Mieszkańcy tego miasta nawet nigdy nie myśleli,
The citizens of the city
że
never
będą
expected
gościć
to host
następcę Chrystusa, najwyższego pasterza
The most-
Kościoła katolickiego.
the highest representative of the church, the Roman Catholic Church. They never expected this thing to happen within this city.
Nigdy by nie byli nawet zdolni wyobrazić sobie,
We couldn't even fathom this thing, that the Holy Father,
synem polskiego narodu,
that a Holy Father could be the son
do nich,
of the Polish land.
podobni do nich z tego samego kraju, z tej samej krwi,
We are all from the same country, from the same blood, from the same tongue, from the same culture.
w imieniu nas wszystkich,
In the name of
którzy
all of us
dzielimy to samo polskie dziedzictwo
who have the
i w
same
imieniu
heritage,
wszystkich innych grup etnicznych,
and in the name of all the ethnic groups represented here,
w nieudolnych słowach, które nie są zdolne oddać uczuć naszych serc,
these words cannot express our
naszą
true feelings.
ogromną wdzięczność za te odwiedziny i za to spotkanie.
Our wonderful gratitude for your coming here and visiting with us.
Błagamy Matkę Boską Częstochowską,
We beg Our Lady of
by
Częstochowa
wyprościła u swego Syna
to beg her
waszej
Son
świątobliwości w tym roku maryjnym potrzebną siłę do prowadzenia i żywienia Jego owczarnych.
Your Holiness,
100 lat
during this Marian year, may you have 100 more years. Stolat is the traditional greeting that one gives to another.
That was the song you were, then the
That's
phrase
right.
you're talking about,
Yeah, it's a
Father?
real crowd pleaser. It just means may he live 100 years. And it's sung at birthdays and any celebratory occasion and being sung with a lot of affection.
Well, it's a
towards
happy
both.
sound.
Oh, yeah,
It's
look
a
at them waving
happy
the flags.
song.
Sure. I'm sure that's not just the choir. Look at everybody's singing it.
And this is a greeting that Poles give one another at weddings when you haven't seen an old pal, or when you see a pope or a
That's right.
bishop, or
It's a toast, it's a happy birthday song, it's happy anniversary, it's
Soviet,
I love you. 100 lat, 100 lat. Mother, forgive me. Niech żyje nam. May he live 100 years. All the Polish I didn't learn as a kid, I now have to fake.
Módlmy się, Wszechmogący Boże i Ojcze nasz, zgromadziłeś nas razem jako Twój oddany lud, byśmy głosili Twoją chwałę i słuchali Twoich świętych słów. Powołałeś nas ze wszystkich stron świata, abyśmy
This is a
wzrastali
prayer
w
being
wierze,
given by the Pope
żyli w pokoju.
for the people that are
Dawali
gathered together.
świadectwo słowem i przykładem Ewangelii Twojego Syna. Usłysz śpiew i modlitwy Twoich wiernych.
Hear our prayer and our songs.
Prosimy Cię o to, przez Jezusa Chrystusa, naszego
Please, in the
Pana,
name of Jesus Christ,
który z Tobą żyje i króluje w
who lives
jedności
with you
Ducha
forever and
Świętego,
ever,
Bóg przez wszystkie wieki wieków.
Pan z wami. Słowa Ewangelii według świętego Mateusza. Jezus powiedział do swoich uczniów: Wy jesteście solą ziemi.
the deacon is now reading the gospel.
Utraci swój smak, czymże ją posolić? Na nic się już nie przyda,
If you lose your soul,
chyba na wyrzucenie i podeptanie przez ludzi.
it will not be worth anything. Throw it aside and let the people trample on it.
Światłem świata.
You are the light of
Nie może
lights.
się ukryć miasto położone na górze.
You cannot hide your light.
Nie zapala się te światła i nie stawia pod porcem, ale na świeczniku, aby świeciło wszystkim, którzy są w domu.
Let your light be shown so that everyone can see it.
Niech świeci wasze światło przed ludźmi, aby widzieli wasze dobre uczynki
So that everyone
i
can see
chwalili
your good
Ojca
words
waszego,
and can praise the Lord
który jest w niebie.
who is in heaven.
Oto słowo Pańskie.
This is the word of the Lord.
Będziecie moimi świadkami.
You are to be my witnesses to the ends of the earth.
Umiłowani rodacy,
Dear Polish brothers and sisters of America,
oto na szlaku
in the course of my lengthy pilgrimage to the church
mojej papieskiej pielgrzymki
in the United
do
States,
Kościoła w Ameryce, Bóg
God has led
przyprowadził
me
mnie
to
do
Detroit, the
drugiego
largest
po Chicago
community of people of Polish origin
skupiska
after Chicago.
ludności polskiego pochodzenia. I oto jestem dobrze mi znanym
Right from the beginning,
Hamtramck.
I've known about Hamtramck. I am very familiar with it.
Zaraz na początku pragnę wam powiedzieć,
Right from the beginning, I wish to tell you two things. First,
używając wyrażenia
as St.
świętego
Paul would
Pawła,
say,
bardzo
I have longed to
pragnąłem
come
do was
to you.
przybyć. Bardzo chciałem
I have
spotkać
greatly
się
desired to be
w
with
tym
you
ważnym momencie
in this
z
important
wami,
moment,
by
to give
podkreślić
prominence
troskę
to the
Kościoła
solicitude of the church
i
and my own personal
apostolską troskę
apostolic
papieża
solicitude for you,
o was,
and to manifest publicly the natural bonds, the bonds of blood, of origin, faith, culture, and to a certain extent also of language, and of love for our common mother, the homeland, your homeland or that of your parents or forebears. And I wish also to extend our meeting today, which is necessarily limited by time and place, to all the United States, and in a certain sense, to all of America. I see it as a meeting with the entire American Polonia, with every American man and woman whose origin is drawn from the old country on the Vistula, with every Pole whose destiny it is to live in this land. I wish them to meet both those whose roots have been deeply set here for generations, and those who, while their hearts are still filled with the scenery of the land of their birth, are seeking a new beginning, certainly not without difficulty. In saying this, I am well aware that I find myself before the largest part of the Polish immigration in the world, which constitutes a large part of the church in the United States. Even today, there are more than 800 Polish parishes. You are my witnesses to the ends of the earth. How can we not thank God then for this meeting and for our prayer together? How can we not thank those who have made it possible and those who have prepared this encounter? The American authorities and those of the American Polonia, the bishops, the priests, sisters, lay people, the various organizations, together with the host of this encounter, Archbishop Edmund Szoka. I wish to greet most cordially and to welcome all of you who are gathered here and all the guests who honor us with their presence. I cordially greet all those who are spiritually united with us. I extend a word of cordial greetings to all our brothers and sisters from other Slavic nations. And John Crow of Philadelphia especially I would like to mention.
Słowo pozdrowienia serdecznego kieruję pod adresem wszystkich obecnych tu, braci i sióstr z narodów słowiańskich, zwłaszcza
I would also like to greet those people of the Ukrainian community who are present here in a very large number. I cordially greet the entire Ukrainian community of Detroit. This is being spoken in Ukrainian, by the way. You are close to my heart. As you solemnly celebrate the millennium of Christianity in the Rus of Kiev and in the Ukraine, from the depths of my Slavic heart, I bless all the sons and daughters of Saint Vladimir and Saint Olga, as well as all the faithful of the Church in the Ukraine and the diaspora. Meanwhile, today, we wish to be closely united with the sons and daughters of Poland.
W sposób szczególny synami i córkami tego narodu, którzy żyją na tym kontynencie, ze wszystkimi,
with all who share or should share in the historical heritage of the same homeland and the same church. In this way, we find ourselves together before the homeland and the whole nation, before its history, its heritage, before its yesterday and its today. And at the same time, we find ourselves before all the heritage of Polonia in this vast and rich country, which has received and continues to receive so many people from all continents, nations, races, and languages. The country that became the homeland for your forebears is also yours. If we recall the past, if we look attentively at our today, we do so, above all, with thought and concern for the future. For, as it has been said, the nation which lets itself be cut off from its tradition descends to the level of a tribe. We recall briefly the first Poles, who, according to the chronicles, came to North America in 1608 and settled in Jamestown, Virginia. And then those who, in the second half of the 18th century, gave the beginning to Polonia in Michigan. The greatest wave of emigration took place, as is known, at the end of the last century and at the beginning of the present century. It was an economic emigration. There were enterprising, hard-working people, worthy people who in the homeland were unable to find food. They left a Poland which had been torn apart by partitions, and as the latest arrivals, they were viewed in different ways. Most often they were uneducated. They brought with them no material riches, but they possessed two great values: an innate love of the faith and of the Polish spirit. Besides, many of them had left with the thought of returning after a time. They did not think that their descendants would put down stable roots in a new country and would collaborate fruitfully in its construction at the end of the second and beginning of the third millennium after Christ. Their tears, suffering, difficulties, humiliations, wandering, and nostalgia are known and described. Yet it was they who built all that is until now, and will remain in the future. The glory and the patrimony of Polonia in North America. First of all, they created a whole network of parishes with monumental churches, schools, just like St. Florian's, hospitals, houses of assistance, organizational structures, the press, publications. We recall here Father Leopold Mochigemba and his nearly 100 parishioners, who on Christmas Eve, 1854, founded the first Polish parish and gave rise to the village of Panna Maria in Texas, and also those. I met them and I met their descendants, and also those who in 1872 founded the first Polish parish in Detroit, dedicated to St. Albertus. With great emotion, I journey spiritually as a pilgrim to these two places. Moreover, these immigrants have produced a great number of priestly and religious vocations, thousands of vocations of women religious, both to Polish congregations and to others. There also arose the various new Polish congregations of women. All this served to make the contribution of the immigrants to the development of religious life and to the ecclesiastical structures a great and irreplaceable treasure for the Church in America. The same spirit was deepened and developed by the different Catholic organizations, both by the older ones, which have been more than 100 years in existence, as well as those by which were established more recently. It is not possible to mention them all here. However, I came to know them in the course of my earlier visits to the United States as Archbishop of Krakow, and through their letters to me in Rome on different occasions. This faithful dedication to the Church is closely tied to a love for Poland and everything associated with it. One has only to think of the volunteers for General Heller's army during the First World War. The financial support for independence activities before the year 1918, and in particular for the support of the Polish Committee in Paris. The enormous gifts and loans to Poland after it regained its independence and began to rise from destruction and ruin. Nor may we forget that this same generation of immigrants, by hard work and sacrifice, also secured a better life for their children and grandchildren. Another page in the history of Polonia was written by St. Cyril and Methodius Seminary, established in Detroit and later transferred to Orchard Lake, which not long ago celebrated its centenary. This seminary grew out of a true love of the Church and out of an attachment to the Holy Spirit. Using the language of the Second Vatican Council, we may say that it sought to read the signs of the times and to meet the needs of the Polish immigration. It developed into a complete scientific and educational complex, from which more than 3,000 priests for the service of Polish immigrants and approximately 15,000 immigrant leaders have come forth. It disseminates Polish culture and the liturgy in the Polish language and contributes to the preservation of awareness concerning the Polish origins of so many Americans. To the representatives of Orchard Lake who are here today, I express gratitude for all that has been accomplished in the past. My hope is for a constant fidelity and a new responsiveness to the needs of today's church and of Polonia as it exists in the world today. Thank you for the hospitality that you have given me in the past at Orchard Lake. Later history witnessed new events, new trials, and a new wave of immigrants. As a result of the Second World War and its aftermath, many more Poles came to the United States. These immigrants were different than the first group, in that they came with a higher level of culture and with a different national political consciousness that retained a strong solidarity with the homeland and the nation. A word of acknowledgement is due to the Polish-American Congress for its many activities on behalf of the nation, and also to the Catholic League, which provided great material aid to the Church in Poland after the war, and continues to provide that aid today. For this, I wish to express the heartfelt gratitude of the Church in Poland. The most recent great undertaking of Polonia throughout the world, but especially Polonia in the United States and of some American friends, is the foundation in the Vatican and the Pilgrim House, the Center for Polish Christian Culture, and the Documentation Center in Rome, which that foundation operates. I know that efforts continue, for example, the establishment of associations of friends of the foundation to ensure the continued activity and development of these institutions. God will surely reward them. And so, having touched only briefly on past history, we arrive at the present and the task of the present creed for Polonia and the Church. The last wave of immigration, like those that preceded it, also becomes a sign of the times for today and a challenge. It calls us to reflection and action. Each immigration has brought with it a new richness as well as new problems. There have been and there continue to be cases of harmful divisions, even splits, which have impeded Polonia and the United States from playing the full role of which it is capable in both the religious and
zarówno w
spiritual
dziedzinie
spheres
religijnej,
and the
duchowej,
social and
jak i
political spheres.
społeczno-politycznej. A teraz będę mówił trochę po angielsku.
And now he's going to speak a little bit in English.
Thus there remains always alive and very real a process of integration that is twofold. It is integration in the sense of a growth in awareness and maturity in Bologna itself, and integration within the country which is now your home. Dear brothers and sisters, the more you are aware of your identity, your spirituality, your history, and the Christian culture out of which your ancestors and parents grew, and you yourselves have grown, the more you will be able to serve your country, the more capable will you be of contributing to the common good of the United States. Precisely out of concern for the common good, this country, in the face of a diversity of peoples, races, and cultures unknown elsewhere, has sought integration in various ways. Theories include nativism, the melting pot, and others that proved incapable of giving results. Today, there is talk of the ethnic principle of roots, since from these roots the full personality of the individual, the community, and the nation arises. The Church wishes to be at the service of such personal and social integration. I have spoken of this on numerous occasions. Many documents of the Church address this issue. It is necessary to study them and put them into practice. Today, I wish to repeat once again the words of the poet. There are so many strengths in the nation, and I wish to pray with him, make us feel the strength. Wyspiański, wyzwolenie. Jest tyle sił w narodzie, jest tyle mnogo ludzi. Daj nam poczucie siły, niech stąpi Twój duch i śpiących niech obudzi. Our strength comes from faith, from God Himself, and from our millenary heritage, in which there resounds in such a vibrant way the paschal mystery of Christ, His passion and resurrection. This richness has been manifested and continues to be manifested in the love of ideals, of truth, of freedom, ours and yours, nasza I wasza wolność, in the love of peace and in respect for the dignity of individuals and of nations. In our own day, there have been moments when these values have shone before the whole world with special brightness. Who among us, and not only us, can forget first the beatification and then the canonization of that son of Polish soil and spiritual son of St. Francis, the humble priest, St. Maximilian Mary Kolbe, who in the midst of atrocities and the inhumanity of the concentration camp exhibited once again before all the contemporary humanity that love unto the end. Święty Maximilian Maria Kolbe. These values, this richness, this inheritance were also manifest in a fuller way and acquired a new light during my 3 pilgrimages to the homeland. I dwell only on the saints and the blessed because they express most fully that which is partially in each of us individually and in all of us together. At the same time, they are the most perfect models of our pilgrimage toward our final destiny in Christ. There is Brat Albert Chmielowski, a patriot and artist who wished to be all kindness in the face of Polish poverty and to other needy. Błogosławiony Rafał Kalinowski, błogosławiona Urszula Leduchowska, a ostatnio błogosławiona Karolina Puskówna, a simple country girl who gave her life in defense of her dignity. Finally, the last in order of time, błogosławiony Michał Kozal, bishop and martyr of Dachau. But this inheritance, as a testimony of the Polish soul, has also been manifested in recent years in another form, when the millennial Christian nation reclaimed its own dignity and legitimate rights. Among other things, I spoke of this on the Polish sea coast, and much of what I said refers to the whole world, including the United States. There, on the Baltic, the word solidarity, solidarność, was spoken in a new way that at the same time confirms its eternal content. In the name of man's future and the future of humanity, it was necessary to say that word, solidarity, solidarność. Today it rose like a white wave over the face of the world, which realizes that we cannot live according to the principle of all against all, but only according to another principle, all with all, all for all. Wszyscy z wszystkimi, wszyscy dla wszystkich. Solidarity. Solidarity must take precedence over conflict. Only then can humanity survive. Can each nation survive and develop within the great human family. Solidarity means a way of existing, for example, of a nation in its human variety, in unity, with respect for difference, for all the diversity that exists among people. And so, unity in variety, in plurality, all this is contained in the concept solidarity, solidarność. Są to słowa, które wypowiedziałem w czasie ostatniej pielgrzymki do Polski w Gdyni 11 czerwca, a potem w Gdańsku. With justifiable pride and gratitude, we may turn to the great authors of our culture, to writers, poets, artists, politicians, to religious and spiritual guides, to all those who also in this land have pointed out new ways to the human spirit. Tadeusz Kościuszko, Kazimierz Pułaski, Włodzimierz Krzyżanowski, Ignacy Paderewski, Helena Modrzejewska, Artur Rubinstein i wspomniany już poprzednio ojciec Leopold Moczyn-Gęba, ksiądz Józef Dąbrowski, założyciel Seminarium Polskiego w Orchard Lake i tylu innych. without forgetting the authors and leaders alive today. But along with them, we remember too the unknown multitudes of mothers and fathers of families who, guided by their force of temperament and sense of faith, living an authentic Christian life and in fidelity to God and their human ideals, were able to mold those lofty ideas into the values that model and determine everyday living. Their daily lives, they themselves lived those values, forged down through the centuries, and they succeed in transmitting them in their families to each new generation. How many priests are there today who bear witness that they owe their priestly vocation in the first place to their saintly mothers? Polskie matki, polskie matki, polskie rodziny. Do nich się zwracam w duchu odwiecznej nauki Kościoła, w duchu Ewangelii, w duchu naszej ojczystej tradycji. Ojczyzna, rodzina, rodzina, Kościół domowy. To jest pierwsze miejsce świadczenia Chrystusowi i stawania się tym, kim się powinno
The Pope is
stać.
interpreting how important the role of mother is to the church and how important the role of the family is to the church also. That's where the roots are.
Zwracam się do was, słudzy Chrystusa i szafarze Bożych tajemnic, do was, kapłani, duszpasterze polonijni. O kapłaństwie mówiłem
I now wish to address you, servants of Christ and administrators of the mysteries of God. You, the
w
priests, the
kontekście
pastors
tego
of Polonia.
spotkania pragnę wam podziękować za wszelkie dobro,
In the contents of the present meeting, I wish to thank you for all the good that the American Polonia has received and continues to receive from your ministry. Remember that the Polish immigration is very important for Poland, just as Poland is important for the immigration. From your awareness of and relationship to our common Christian heritage will depend, in great part,
będzie zależeć w dużej
the
mierze
bonds between your faithful
naszych wiernych z
and
narodem,
the nation, of
którego
which they
przecież
are
są
sons and
synami
daughters.
i córkami.
Bonds of
Więź wiary,
faith,
kultury,
culture
więź
and
mowy
language.
ojczystej. Poszanowanie
Respect for
i
and
podtrzymywanie
preservation
tego
of this
dziedzictwa
heritage should constitute
powinno stanowić
one of the
jedną z
fundamental
podstawowych
principles
zasad
of your pastoral
naszego
care.
duszpasterzowania. Jakże to
How consoling it
pocieszające,
is that
że
young people
młodzieży
throughout the
całym
world
świecie
are experiencing a growing
zainteresowanie
interest in
własną
their
przeszłością.
past.
Odkrywają
Young
samych
people
siebie,
discover themselves
szukając
as they
podstaw
search for the
własnej
foundations of their own
tożsamości,
identity,
jej źródeł
its
i korzeni,
sources and roots,
tych
the
pierwszych
first
warstw.
strata from which
których
it
ona wyrasta.
proceeds.
Wiem,
I know
że ten
that our
sam
young
proces
people living here
obejmuje w
are
dużej
very
mierze
much a
naszą
part of this
młodzież
process,
polonijną,
and that more and
że
more
coraz chętniej
they are
poznają
willing to
dzieje
learn the
ojczyzny,
history,
swoich ojców, język,
the
całe
language,
jego
and all the
bogactwo.
richness of the homeland from which
I
their
am
forebears
proud
came.
to be a
They
Polish
gladly
American.
say, I am
Mówią chętnie.
proud to be American.
Ale wtedy są dumni ze swego pochodzenia,
But they are no less
lepiej
proud of
poznają,
their origins,
bo wtedy nie
especially when
odczuwają
they know
żadnych
more about
kompleksów.
them, because then they feel
Pomagajcie
no
im w tym
complex.
poznawaniu.
Help them in this learning and liberation.
Wychodźcie naprzeciw potrzebom duchowym
Then to
najnowszej
meet the
emigracji.
spiritual needs of the
Nie
most recent
traćcie,
immigration.
drodzy
Do
bracia,
not lose heart.
kapłani, odwagi.
Do not be
Nie
enclosed
zamykajcie się
in the golden tower
w
of
złotej wieży
prejudice,
uprzedzeń, rutyny,
routine,
minimalizmu
pastoral
duszpasterskiego
minimalism, and
czy
ease.
łatwizmu. Nie
Do
pomniejszajcie
not diminish Do not reduce. Do not close whatever serves the true well-being of the faithful, strengthens their spiritual relationship with the Savior, and leads to genuine growth of the Spirit. Dear brothers and sisters,
powiedział Chrystus, będziecie moimi świadkami aż po krańce ziemi.
The announcement and call was addressed by Christ to the apostles shortly before his
Przed
ascension.
swoim w niebo wstąpieniem. Przed tym powiedział do nich,
He said to them,
gdy Duch Święty stąpi
you
na
will
was,
receive power when the Holy Spirit comes down on you.
będziecie świadkami, gdy
That
otrzymacie
is, you are to be
Ducha.
my witnesses when you receive
Jesteśmy
the power of the
świadkami
Holy
Chrystusa
Spirit.
w mocy
We
Ducha
are
Świętego.
witnesses of Christ in the power of the Holy
Duch
Spirit.
Święty jest źródłem
The Holy Spirit is the
fundamentem
beginning, the source,
chrześcijańskiego
the
życia,
foundation of Christian
nowej
life in the new
epoce
era of the
historii
history of
zbawienia, w epoce
salvation,
Kościoła,
in the time of the church,
Jego
in the time of
posłannictwa,
mission,
w epoce świadectwa.
in the time of witness.
Niech Jego moc
May His power fill
napełnia
your
wasze
hearts
serca, umysły
and
i wolę,
minds and wills
abyście wiernie
to enable you to
świadczyć
bear
mogli
witness to Christ
Chrystusowi
with your own witness
waszym świadectwem, świadectwem
and that of
ojców,
your forefathers,
świadectwem
with the
tysiącletniego
witness of the
dziedzictwa
millenary Christian
chrześcijańskiego
heritage of
tej
that
ziemi,
land that has
która
the
ma
right
prawo,
and
pragnie
wishes to call
nazywać
you
was
her
także
sons
swoimi
and
synami i
daughters.
córkami. Dziedzictwo
This
to
heritage
naznaczone jest
is marked in a
szczególny
very special
sposób
way by the presence of the
obecnością
Blessed
Boga Rodzicy
Virgin,
Dziewicy,
the Mother of God,
Bogiem sławionej
Mary
Maryi,
blessed by God,
tej, co jasnej
she
broni
who defends
Częstochowy
bright
i
Częstochowa
w ostrej
and
świeci
shines
bramy.
in the morning gate.
Do niej to wolał nasz
Our
wiersz.
poet cried out to her,
Przenoś moją
carry
duszę
there my
utęsknioną.
soul full of nostalgia.
Wasza dusza
Your
utęskniona
hearts do
nie
not
jest,
feel nostalgia
bo jesteście
because you are
już
already sons
także
and daughters
synami
of
i
this
córkami
land and
tej
citizens
ziemi,
of this country.
obywatelami tego kraju. Niech jednak Maria
Still, may
przenosi
Mary
wasze
carry your souls towards
ku temu, co
everything that
dobre,
is good,
co piękne, co
beautiful,
wielkie,
great,
ku temu,
toward
dlaczego
those
warto
values
żyć.
that make life
O
worth
to
living.
prosimy ją szczególnie dzisiaj.
This we ask of her,
Prosimy ją w
especially
obecnym
today.
roku Maryi.
This we ask of her in the Marian year.
Pragnę teraz
Now
pobłogosławić
I wish to bless all of you present, your families and dear ones,
waszym rodzinom,
the
waszym
children
bliskim,
and the young
waszym
people,
dzieciom, młodzieży, ludziom chorym,
the sick,
starym i
the
samotnym,
old, those who are
kapłanom
alone.
i diakonom,
I bless the priests, the
rodzinom
deacons,
zakonnym,
the
męskim
religious
i
families
żeńskim,
of men and women,
alumnom w
the
seminariach
seminarians,
duchownych, parafiom,
the parishes,
środowiskom pracy i
the places of
odpoczynku,
work and
całej
recreation.
Polonii w
I
Ameryce
bless the
Północnej.
whole of Polonia in North America.
Wezwani zbawiennym nakazem i oświeceni pouczeniem Bożym, ośmielamy się mówić: Ojcze nasz,
This is the Our Father being sung in Polish by the Pope and the people gathered here.
imię Twoje, przyjdź królestwo Twoje.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Amen. The Lord be with you, and also with you. Let the name of Christ be blessed forever and ever.
Pomożenie nasze w imieniu Pana. Niech was błogosławi Bóg Wszechmogący.
Let the Lord bless all of you.
Ojciec i
In the
Syn,
name of the Father,
Duch
and of the Son,
Święty.
and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Niech będzie pochwalony Jezus Chrystus.
May Jesus Christ be blessed forever and
Once
ever.
again, I express my gratitude to all the cardinals and bishops and all our guests in this our common celebration, Polish and Polonian celebration. Thank you very much.
Those are the kids presenting him with the flowers.
Long speech.
Yeah,
by
a
His
speech.
Holiness.
Yeah, that I think reads better than it is to listen to, but I think I'm sure it will be published in the paper, and especially in the Polish language papers. A speech that really, in a generous and very insightful way, appreciative of Polish priests, sisters, lay people, and all that they've done in this country. And his departure point was, I've sent you out as apostles to the nations. And so he reminded Polish Catholics that they brought from Poland not only their culture, but their faith, and to make sure that that animates their continued service to the United States and the world.
I'm sure there were a lot of people who did not know that there were Polish immigrants who landed at Jamestown. The first Polish church was, what, down in Texas?
That's right, in Panna Maria, and he mentioned that in his talk, as well as St. Albertus here in Detroit.
Is this kind of a speech, perhaps, Father, more European than it is American, in the sense that it was a lengthy speech?
Yeah, I think we are a media-conscious culture. I think we're more
Wham,
given
bam,
to...
thank you. I want to get
yeah, real quick,
and today.
Yeah, just give me the substance and let's move on. So I think I would guess that the people, out of their love and reverence for the Pope, tolerated the long talk, but because of their affection. But I think.
Well, he certainly demonstrated his linguistic abilities there, speaking in English, Ukraine, Polish.
Ukrainian.
Polish is what? Is it? It's a
Slavic.
It's not Germanic.
No, I think. Well, I'm not a linguist, but I understand that Slavic is another language group apart from from Germanic languages.
Many of the Poles, in speaking English, transfer the same rules of grammar to English that exist in Polish. For instance, in Polish, they don't have the small articles. But when someone says, I go to store, it isn't that they don't understand English, but that they're transferring
using
the rules of Polish grammar to English.
That's right. So they're actually being quite consistent, and it's we who don't understand Polish who fault them for their lack of English.
Now, is it your understanding that he's the final editor of his speeches, that they are kind of prepared for them, he will give them a theme?
I think the American bishops suggest a theme and even write a first draft, Bill, and then it's sent to the Holy Father, and he has a chance to look it over and to make corrections before it's finally prepared for his delivering it. So he puts his personal stamp on things, but relies very much on the local pastor, the local bishop, to give him a point in the direction of what needs to be said. So I think any Polish Catholic layperson, a priest or sister, if they were listening to this talk, would feel tremendously affirmed by what he said. He knows their history. He's told them that, and even told the people at Panna Maria in Texas, where he could not go, and when he was in San Antonio, spiritually, I am a pilgrim to that place, and spiritually, even though I can't get to St. Albertus down in Canfield and St. Aubin, he has been there before. I'm spiritually traveling there in my heart. So he wants people to know that their places of origin, their streets and their alleys and their homes are places that are his as well. I think the backdrop here, the visuals in Hamtramck are
the factories, the little homes.
Yeah,
I mean,
working class folks. greeting the various Michigan bishops and Detroit bishops here. Must be, I mean, aware as he is that what it takes to be a shepherd and a pastor, he must appreciate that these bishops have come a great distance to see him and had to change their schedule. So there's a kind of, I think, a camaraderie that says, hey, thanks a lot for coming.
Do you get the feeling that one of the purposes of this trip for this Pope is to show his American bishops, look, you have problems in this Catholic Church of yours over here in America, and what you've got to do is get out there and mingle with your people. You've got to touch them. You've got to. He's kind of setting an example.
Yeah.
I think you feel this?
Yes, I do. I do. I think, you know, one living witness is worth an encyclopedia of words about the subject. And I think any bishop who sees him, as so many are during his trip around the country, has got to be thinking, gosh, and I think most of them, Bill, would say, I wish I could do more of this. Here I am stuck at an office authorizing big major decisions, and I think most any bishop I've ever talked to says, you know, the frustration is how to administer a diocese and yet do what I really love to do, which is be out on the front lines. Archbishop Jacques has said that himself, and I think he's honest in saying that. It's, well, it's very affirming.
Of course, one of the criticisms of the Pope, and it's not very loud, but you hear whispers, according to research that I've encountered, is that the whispers in the Vatican are, he travels too much.
Yeah.
And, of course, the moment he gets back from one of these trips, everybody goes to work planning the next trip, so that he's about 10 months behind in all of his paperwork, and he's delegated a lot of that authority. He doesn't want to get bogged down on that stuff.
Right.
But
yeah.
There are some very serious problems within the church, particularly the budget deficit.
That's right.
Not unlike Washington, D.C. I think they've had to borrow money, I think, from various organizations.
I'm not sure about that. I know that there's a bit of an austerity campaign, and he did summon a lot of the American bishops and cardinals to Rome. Cardinal Kroll from Philadelphia was one of them, just to give him some advice on how to straighten that out.
He now gets in the Pope Mobile, and they're going to be traveling south, probably catch the I-75 down to Ford Auditorium, where there's going to be another historic speech and gathering, because for the first time, a Pope will meet with the assembled American deacons, who, in a sense, are ordained ministers of the church, and their wives, which is a first.
That's right, and it highlights that ministry. I wanted to comment, the shot panned to the Pope Mobile and showed those lovely banners, those red and white banners that are along Joseph Campo and throughout Hamtramck, really. Those were designed by a group called Neighborhood Artisans, which is a self-help group, a group of sisters, Sister Una Ryan and some other folks who teach inner-city residents a craft, how to silkscreen and produce these things. They have a shop, I think, down at Trapper's Alley. And then they were, the framework that they're hanging on was done by Father Bill Cunningham's Focus Hope Machinist Training Institute. So that was a grassroots kind of project to make those decorations for the city of Hamtramck.
Of course, behind the Pope, while he was speaking, was that marvelous replica of the famous Polish Madonna, Mary.
That image is really as big as it looked on the screen, 10 by 12 feet, by a Detroit teacher whose name is Dennis Arlovsky. And Dennis took about 2 months to paint that, and wasn't so apparent maybe except on the tight shots that in the four corners were the four Catholic churches in Hamtramck. I hope I get them all. St. Florian's, Our Lady Queen of Apostles, St. Ladislaus, and Ukrainian parish, Immaculate Conception.